it's a very odd skill set. It's an odd set of tools that you use to make good cartoons. I think that one thing that I did in the beginning was I looked at lots and lots of cartoons. I'd go to the public library and I would get lots of books about cartooning. And you begin to sort of understand the strange mechanics of a cartoon, which is often a good allegory or a metaphor, a reference to a fairy tale that's twisted a little bit, maybe a good pun, a play on words combined with an interesting image. You begin to sort of, in the same way a writer probably reads lots and lots of novels or whatever before they begin to figure out like, oh, this is what you need to do for character development and narrative. There's tools that you familiarize yourself by looking at the work of others. It's interesting to see every time there's a new political figure that shows up on the scene, there's a kind of a conversation that cartoonists have back and forth about how are we going to caricature, what's the character of this figure. And usually the cartoon character becomes so extreme, it really doesn't resemble the actual person, but it becomes a symbol that everybody recognizes. Mm-hmm. If you go back and you look at Bill Clinton or George W. Bush or Barack Obama, the cartoon caricature compared to the photograph is like, it's not a very, you wouldn't call it a portrait, but it becomes, with George W. Bush, we tugged out his ears and we made his lip sort of really big and squinty eyes, and it became this little shorthand calligraphic symbol. Mm-hmm. And, Trump was particularly easy because he's so extreme. His hair is so unique. And then also his complexion. So here is my lovely attic studio. I have my I'm not entirely a Luddite. I do work on computers. That's my computer setup. And then over here is, see, I have a very traditional sort of drawing table set up. This is a piece, I'm doing a poster for the Hay Adams Hotel. It's a sort of a how to fight COVID-19 poster with little political figures.
Great.
And then, so this will then be transferred with a light box onto watercolor paper. And then I use these watercolors. And they come in little tubes. Like that. I work really in a style that's totally out of the 18th century. I work with, ink and on paper with paints. You put that on there, and I've got it sort of all worked out in the rough sketch, and then you put another piece of paper on top. That's the watercolor paper, and then I can ink without adding more pencil to it. So my process is I do a rough drawing, I then move to watercolor paper, I ink things, and then I get out my paints and I watercolor on top of the ink drawing. And then they end up looking like, here is a example of a silly gag cartoon. We were talking about non-serious cartoons. This is a bookstore, and he's selling books as do-it-yourself toilet paper kits. The small books are $2. The big books are $4. Sometimes I feel like the thing to do when you're doing a cartoon is to also give people a little lighthearted cheerfulness or something. These days, especially.